Okay, I wanted to just move forward. I'll just take this off. It's confusing. There's been a lot already discussed today about the reason why we are dealing with young people and the realities of youth. Just to confirm the scenario that you said, my own son has a bank account, and I was overseas and I couldn't access mine, so I accessed his bank account and took some money out of his bank account, which was a fixed savings account, and didn't think he'd notice. When I got home I put it back in. But when he got his letter and it said that there was no interest paid that month, it went flat, he didn't get his pay from the bank, as he calls it, he asked me what had happened, and I am the only other one that has. So then he wanted that as extra pocket money. Unfortunately, my son is only 7, so I can't get away with anything, so I completely agree with you. Given that, I'll just move forward through this. I wanted to start with a very quick example as to why language makes such a difference. We've been using some terms interchangeably today that in the space that I work in, we've been forced to wrestle with a finer, more refined version of the definition because they don't necessarily work interchangeably. I have a brother at the moment who's in Scotland, and when I ring him and he says it's really muddy, he's frustrated because there's one word in Australian that we use for mud. But in Scotland, where it's a reality every day, they like to use very specific terms to describe the reality of mud. And there's 14 to 16 words that they use to really understand in fine detail the concept of mud. It's something they look at every day and they need to know more about the term. And I think with financial education, financial literacy, financial capability, these terms, for us to really discover the elements within that could provide us opportunities to find new ways to go the last mile, to go that extra mile, we need to unravel those definitions in more detail. And so for the purposes of this presentation, I wanted to put a definition up there that is, for us, how we think about financial education, that it's the equipping, it does involve attitudes and knowledge and skills, but also what we would use as self-efficacy or belief in themselves, people's belief in themselves to make informed and confident, timely management decisions. But while that's useful, I think the thing we have to appreciate is when we don't have a direct translation for something, it's not just that we need a substitute word, it's that we often can't see the detail that's behind that. And so I wanted to take a little bit of time today to just break that down. I think we've already gone through so much about the hypothesis and the theory of change and where there might be some shortfalls with that theory of change that was really, Benny did a great job at explaining that earlier today. But I think as we reflect, we can see the reason why innovations have started to pop up, because the financial education theory has stalled somewhat and is not taking us that last distance to the desired future that we would hope individuals would have. We've heard discussions today about not creating a cushion, but we've had it explained over and over. We can talk about the dangers of over-indebtedness, but we're still seeing people make risky financial decisions. And in that environment, we see a whole bunch of innovative efforts to see what else could be done, what other techniques could be employed. You may have come across things like just-in-time education, which is not too dissimilar to, in a retail setting, point of sale advice, greater emphasis on teachable moments, ideas around the cascading messages to reach, harder to reach segmentation, rules of thumb and nudge or persuasion strategies. We see all these things coming up, and it for some of us it is exciting. For others, it might make us nervous. Does that really qualify for, is it legitimate? Is this trustworthy? Is this just a fad? And I think when we're talking in this panel about innovation, it's really important that we understand that there's going to be friction in this space. It was Galileo that discovered in the principles of physics that moving objects create friction when they come into contact with rigid surfaces. And we're not saying that the rigid surfaces are bad, but what we're saying is that the things that allowed us to do incremental innovation or improvements, the things that allowed us to get better at financial education in a direct training sense, that allowed us to sophisticate our approaches and become efficient, some of those processes can, if we're not careful, hold us to ransom and close down that innovation space, because they then hold us in quite a rigid position, and there can become quite a lot of heat. And I wanted to give the contrast to the focus on financial capability as a oh, I've gone too fast, I think. There should be one more slide. Sorry. Will it go backwards? Should. No. Okay, it's gone. The example I wanted to give before the definition was in South Africa. South Africa is a great example of the Financial Services Board. They had, after tax, 0.2% of all profits should be dedicated into financial education. But the definition that they had was that there was a breakdown of ratio between the spend. So 20% could go to things like awareness raising. But in their definition, that really equated to advertising and marketing. And then 80% had to be spent on financial education, which in their mind was very rigid. It was face-to-face direct training. And what happened was a great project, a radio project, was using the spend in the 20% and actually proved out through FEF, and a lot of the evaluation was done by the Russia Trust, to be very effective in a number of different measures. But then the challenge came is that they needed to spend more of the money than they had in the 20% to actually roll out this program and take it to scale, from the 4 radio stations they piloted to the 11 radio stations nationally. And what they were able to do through a very heated process with stakeholders, so education, Financial Services Board, financial sector, other stakeholders, is to really unpack the definition. What really qualified as awareness raising, so the pendulum on this side, not just marketing. And then all the way to the other side, what was the experience base that was required? And then in the middle of that was the definitions around financial education. Could financial education be delivered in other ways apart from direct face-to-face? And they were able to then go to broadcasters, get new definitions for broadcasting standards for education-based programming, that then meant that more of their spend could swing into the education space. So as a result of that, we can see that definition is powerful, that to unpack these things allows great space. So I want to quickly jump forward then. There it is. I'll move past the definitions right now. Nothing's working. Okay. So I wanted to just quickly talk about the environment that we need to create a space for innovation and what's needed for an ecosystem to build financial capability development. You might see that we have on one side the opportunity to act, and then on the horizontal axis, the capacity to act. So where these things are low, we don't see much evidence of financial confidence to act or financial capabilities being demonstrated. If we have too much opportunity to act but not enough capacity, we see people panic and get stressed out. And if we see too much capacity but not enough opportunity, we see people disengage. What we really want to do is build programs, however we package them, that's going to be in the green zone. And part of that is understanding, as I said, the components that are required for financial capability development. So we want to have programs that build awareness. We want to have programs that deliver direct training. These are not trade-offs. We want to have programs that deliver practice and rehearsal opportunities. And so when we think about innovation, and we see very appealing and attractive possibilities out there, it's more than just running after video or running after the web or running after something that's to do with gamification or gaming. It has to be about where does it fit in this ecosystem? What exactly will the benefits be? So I know we're running so short of time. Yeah. Quickly jump forward. Very quickly, it's really important to have tools at home. Yes, parents might not equally be equipped to train their children, but it's got a cascading effect, and there's some fantastic programs up there. Agent Piggy is just one innovation in Latin America as a new startup. These have multiple platforms, and they really offer parents as well as kids learning opportunities. Gamification is really taking the concept of games and putting it into a space that's not usually occupied by games. And what about this I find attractive is that when people game, they become almost with superpowers. Their concentration becomes heightened. Their ability to be resilient in the face of failure is enhanced. They have, I'm just trying to quickly get there. They have more endurance to develop their skills. They recognise the value of extended practice. Even if you don't understand how you would see the value of this in your programs, to take the concepts that make gamification work and try to introduce those, like very quick feedback loops that allow people to make mistakes and rehearse them immediately and to then be successful. Rewards, all these things are really things we could learn. And there's other games on practical money skills for life that really would be worth you taking a quick look at. Broadcast radio, we don't have time for, but I can make my presentation. But these are programs in countries where the school setting is fluctuating. In Nepal, they can't always get to school because of the weather. And so these radio programs have been built where people can write in, kids can talk with their best friend. It's run by young people. It's presented by young people. They do talk back with young people. But the really interesting thing is not just how many people they reach as one indicator of success, but how that translates into activities on the ground. These clubs that come and spring up as a result take what they hear and translate it into conversations in Nepal with people at bus stops, water tanks, or if they're in Cambodia, they actually start clubs to try to implement the ideas and the learnings that they're hearing. If you haven't yet heard about Shujaz, you really should check that out as an effective national program. It's now across all 20 major broadcasting stations in Kenya. It's a 5-minute daily program where the DJ boys there, the guy with the dreadlocks, he's actually a fictional character. But people so buy into this that he has over 20,000 followers on Facebook, that they get something in the vicinity of, sorry, quickly get there, quick, sorry. 1,000 text messages a week based on the programs and questions. The population that follows this, 50% of them are 15 to 24-year-olds, and we heard today around the relevance of that in Kenya. The interesting thing is that they distribute this comic, 60,000 copies a month, through the M-Pesa agents as well as the newspapers. So, it's very difficult to do presentations in 10 minutes. Okay, so basically the last 4 points I want to leave you with, that I just think if you're going to be making decisions about financial capability development programs and innovation. The first one is build your theory of change of deep understandings of target audiences to ensure correct, as we heard, not courageous or flawed assumptions. So really understand all the determinants. The second one is to understand the key components of the ecosystem that's required for financial capability development and try to have multiple ways, techniques or tools to reach the same target audience that provides that reinforcement. The next one is to make sure you have the right combination of interventions and that you correctly evaluate those different. Don't try to test knowledge acquisition if your program was about raising awareness. Make sure that your evaluation is really focused on the right things. And if you have multiple strategies, you're going to need multiple objectives and indicators that test that single thing to really know the value. And then lastly, remember that financial capability development in its full sense is a lifelong journey. So really understanding how your innovative approach is going to support the scaffolding of knowledge and the development, the ongoing development of graduating levels of capacity. Thanks very much. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Rob.